So let me give my recommended beginner's practice. The first is the 4 great vows, because that sets our direction. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to save them all. Delusions are endless. We vow to cut through them all. The teachings are infinite. We vow to learn them all. The Buddha way is inconceivable. We vow to attain it. I can give a whole hour's worth of talks about that, but I won't. But the 4 great vows. And then, even though I have wonky knees and I have to sit in a chair, at home, I do 3 prostrations, and it's really pathetic to watch, because getting down and getting up is almost impossible for me, but I do it anyway. But as Charlie says, if you can't do it, I recommend chair prostrations if you can't, instead of standing bows, because you get to this posture of surrender, which standing bows you don't. So just do it in a chair if you can't do it, but some form of prostrations. And then you can just sit for 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, you can just do that. And it's really hard to do because we're so conditioned to screens, that if you can do it before you look at a screen and before you have your tea, maybe you just pee and you brush your teeth and, then you do your practice, that's really great. It's very hard to do, but I think we can find the focus and the will to do it. But anyway, so that's what I recommend for beginners. It's very, very simple. 4 great vows, 3 prostrations, 5 minutes of sitting. If you can make the 5 minutes 10 minutes, that's better. If you can make it 20 minutes, that's even better. But just regularly touch the Dharma. Regularly touch the Dharma in a formal manner every day is very important. So, are there any questions? Yes?
The bamboo on the altar.
Why is there bamboo on the altar? Because it's nice. There's no significance of it. It's just we thought on ceremonies, on ceremonies we always have flowers on the altar. Why not have bamboo? So that's why we have bamboo on the altar. It lasts a long time, unlike flowers, years and years. Yeah. Are there any other questions? Yes.
Okay, and I realize that for Charlie's translation, you're not sure what the translator thought, but I do run across the word spirit in a lot of the teachings, and I'm wondering if is in Buddhism, what is the concept of spirit? Your understanding of it anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly not what it is in Abrahamic religions. Yeah. So it's not a word that's often used, and for all I know, when it's used, it's a mistranslation, because I don't speak Sanskrit, I don't speak or read Sanskrit or Pali or Chinese, which are the major Buddhist languages, Tibetan, Korean, Japanese, etc. So the real question is, what am I? What is your substance? And as you look at this, it becomes more and more evanescent. It's like smoke. It's a substance that has no substance. So what is it? Who are you? What are you? So rather than saying, oh, in Buddhism, spirit is a word that means blah, 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 or spirit is a translation of the following options in Sanskrit or the following options in Chinese, and each of these, the real question is to look very deeply. What am I? What is this universe? And then the convenient word spirit doesn't matter. It's just a convenient word, just like all other words. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, whenever, I shouldn't say this, Charlie, but whenever I hear sayings of the Buddha, there's so many fake sayings of the Buddha, but your book gives references, it gives sources, so it's okay. But you go online and you'll see things attributed to the Buddha that he could never have said. Never in a million years, you know. And the same is true for Einstein. You see all these things about Einstein. He never said these things. But yeah, there's even a page, fake sayings of the Buddha. You know, so if you ever see a saying of the Buddha and you're unsure about it, go to the page Fake Sayings of the Buddha, look it up, see if it's there. But yeah, the Dhammapada is genuine. The Dhammapada is Pali text. It's from Theravada, Southeast Asian Buddhism, and it's quite wonderful. I recommend Gil Fronsdal's translation. That's the one that I particularly like, but there are many, many translations, and it's quite wonderful. Yeah, it begins very early on. It says something like that anger can never overcome anger, and violence can never overcome violence, which is very good. That anger can never overcome anger, and violence can never overcome violence. That's my paraphrase, but that's really good to remember. So, thank you. Are there any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
You gave a recommendation for a beginner on what to do in terms of practice. What is the recommendation for a non-beginner, or is that different?
Do more. So instead of 3 vows, do 9 or 27 or 108. Instead of 5 minutes, do 20 minutes or 25 minutes. If you're really ambitious and you can do it, instead of once a day, do it twice a day. Okay? So Zen practice is very interesting because there are a lot of forms of Buddhism that it's like the practices that are for beginners, and then practices for people who've been around for a while, and practices that have been around for more than that, and so on. So as you practice longer and longer, you're given different types of practices. But Zen, the minute you walk in the door, that's it. You know, it's true that there are many, many different types of meditations that you can do. There's mantra, there's great question, there's breath practices. There are many, many practices that you can do. Fast mantra, slow mantra, etc., etc. But it's not that one of them is, oh, first you do this one, and then you ascend to that one, and then you ascend to that one. Zen, it's all like you walk in the door, that's it. You know, and after you've been practicing for a while, you know, like I started practicing, I was counting my breath for a long time. And then it was recommended that I switch to mantra practice. And for health reasons, actually, because in mantra practice, silent, very fast mantra while I'm sitting, your mind and body really come together. So I did mantra practice for a long time. And then after a while, it didn't quite fit, you know? So then I tried another practice, and I did that for a long time. And after a while, that didn't quite fit. And then now I do just what am I on the out breath. That's my personal practice. But you can walk in the door as a beginner and start doing what am I if it fits you, and if you don't intellectualize because of it. And you can practice for, 50 years. I've been practicing for, I think, 46 years. And maybe like in a year or two, I might discover that I really want to just watch my breath or just count my breath. So it's not like one of them is elevated over another one. It's just at this point in your life, what fits? It's like clothing. You put on clothing, and sometimes it's too small, and sometimes it's too large, and sometimes it's just right. So that's how Zen is. Nothing is more special than anything else. The basic practices, all the same. Anyone can do them. Nothing is like, a secret door, and, when you give the code word, then we'll let you in and teach you this practice. It's not like that at all. Thank you for your question. Yeah. I will say, though, that retreats, because retreats are very intense, emotionally and physically, we do ask that people have some experience have been practicing for a while before they sit retreats. In fact, we make people sign a disclaimer. You know, I understand that something really bad might happen to me on this retreat, and I don't hold the Zen Center responsible. Everyone who sat a retreat here has signed that disclaimer, and there's a lot of you in the room, but you might not have noticed what you were signing. And that's because very rarely, it's never happened here, but very rarely, someone will actually have either a physical or an emotional response that needs emergency care. But that's like, you know, if you want to climb Mount Everest, you don't do it if you've never climbed a mountain before. So it's the same kind of thing. This is an arduous activity, and we want to make sure that you have some experience before you try doing it. But it's not that it's a special activity, and only the people with the secret knowledge can do it. It's just, you know, it's tough. And we want to make sure you have the sort of ability to do it. So are there any other questions? Well, that's good, because I want to talk about the 4 great vows. Since we started with them, and I thought, oh, now I can talk about them. So the 4 great vows are very old. You know, Charlie was talking about bowing. Prostrations are hundreds of years old. They're actually thousands of years old. The 4 great vows, I'm not sure where they come from, but they're also very, very old. You know, well over 1,000, maybe 2,000, maybe more. So the first thing to understand is in the Chinese there are no pronouns in the Chinese version. I mean, Chinese does have pronouns, but in the 4 great vows they don't appear. So instead of sentient beings or numberless, we vow to save them all. It's more like the many beings vow save. That's the grammatical structure of that. And we chose, since English needs pronouns, we put in we, and most Mahayana groups put in I, but we put in we. So sentient beings are numberless, we vow to save them all, and the Chinese doesn't have sentient, it has the many beings, because everything's sentient, okay. So many beings, numberless, you know, without number, we vow to save. And this word save is very interesting, because what it's not like saving, like you're going to jump into the, you know, the ocean when someone's drowning, and it's not like saving like you're going to, you know, get someone to convert so they can go to heaven or something like that. It really, what it's really translating is a word that's in English is a very complicated phrase, to take someone over to the other shore being awakening. So it's like you're a ferry boat person taking people over, you know, helping people. So you're just helping people, you know, pointing the way, helping them wake up. So many beings, you know, sentient beings are numberless. We vow to save them all. And the second is delusions are endless. We vow to cut through them all. And delusions is the interesting word there, because the word in Chinese, it's actually 2 words, Bon Hae. That's my name, Bon Hae. See, my name is perceive wisdom, but Bon Hae, which sounds almost the same, is the word for the kleshas, the hindrances. And that includes things like delusion, includes things like, what was the word we used to use? I'm forgetting what it was. Oh, passions. So it includes concepts like that, just anything that grabs a hold of your mind and doesn't let go. So the bon hae. So we chose the word delusions because passions, we used to use that, and then people said, oh, that's a little weird because I can't be passionate about chocolate ice cream, you know. And so we use the word delusions. And the word cut is actually in the Chinese. A lot of translations use sort of kind of milder language, but cut is actually in the Chinese. So delusions are endless, we vow to cut through them all. The teachings are infinite, we vow to learn them all. Some people translate it as Dharma gates. So the teachings, the Dharma gates. It's important to understand that teachings doesn't necessarily mean what you have in a book or hear in a talk. So teachings is like this universe is always teaching. If we just wake up and open to it. And it's not teaching lessons that we can say, oh, this is what I learned at 3 o'clock in the morning when I couldn't sleep and I looked at the universe and it taught me this. No, it's not like that. The teachings are more fundamental than any language we can use. So the teachings are infinite. We vow to learn them all. Maybe absorb would be a better word. And then my favorite, the Buddha way, is inconceivable. We vow to attain it. The word inconceivable is a very odd translation because in the Chinese it's actually none higher. So nothing is higher than the Buddha way. We vow to attain it. But I like inconceivable because what inconceivable tells us, you can't conceive of it. It doesn't live in our frontal lobes. It's not something that if you think and think and think and think and think and read all these books and, do that won't get you there. The reason you can attain it is exactly because you can't conceive of it. If you conceive of something, then you have an idea. Before you've met this thing, you have an idea of what it is. And then when you respond, you're responding to your idea of it and not to what it actually is. So the Buddha way is inconceivable. We can't conceive it. That is why we can't attain it. Otherwise, we'd just be attaining our idea of it. So that's the 4 great vows. And we have like 2 minutes if somebody has a quick question. Yes?
One of the chants, the word perverted is crossed out.
Yeah, so one of the chants, the word perverted is crossed out. So this is the Heart Sutra. And the Chinese actually means upside down. And so this was translated, the poet Gary Snyder thought it should be translated as topsy-turvy. We use the translations that's basically the San Francisco Zen Center translation from like the 1970s or something with some minor changes. And so this word perverted is kind of capturing this idea of upside down. Inverted might be better. But perverted, I mean, it sounds like a guy in a raincoat, trying to expose himself, right? That's not so cool. So finally, we decided to make it diluted, okay? And that's the solution that most Buddhist groups in America, translating into English, that's the solution that most of them have come to independently. So thank you for your question. Yeah, we need new chanting books, but they're really expensive. So you see that crossed out word. All right. Okay, thank you. Time for announcements.